The major ethical foundation of capitalism was self-interest, self-centered. Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, argued that self-interest was the invisible hand that drives a modern economy. You can analyze that one and see that when you have self-interest, you are driving something towards competition, and as a result, you bring out new ideological sentiments, innovations, and other new markets that may bring what we call modern economy. This has created an economic jungle where we find moral and ethical chaos and confusion. If you have ever seen a game of competition, each one wants to prove the best. Each one wants to out-compete the other. So in the process, there is what we have called economic jungle of moral, ethical chaos and confusion. But the original meaning of the economics call for moral order if we are to attain well-being. Morality is always good for bringing together people by observing what is good for all of us, well-being. We want to tackle the question of aid and debt for debts in poor countries. The world's poorest countries have paid approximately $550 billion in debt payment as principal and interest, yet they still remain with a debt of $523 billion to pay. And this debt is still growing. It increases. Interest increases as long as you are not paying or you are not getting rid of the debt. And as a result, this debt and aid, so to say, remains a thorn among the poor countries because they will never be able to pay it all or to overcome it. Debt issues is now a moral and ethical issue. In the year 1970, the world's poor countries were demanded to pay $25 billion, out of which Africa was paying $11 billion, almost a half. In 2002, $523 billion for the whole world countries which are poor, of which 295, more than a half, were owed by African countries. And in that slide, we see a question we're asking. You can see those cartoons where you see money being poured in a basket, and maybe Africans are represented by that picture of a pig, and you see the man who is receiving impoverished because of poor conditions. So we ask ourselves, is it ethical for the poor countries to continue paying debts even after they have paid many times over and above the premium and interest? It is reported that on Thursday, 26th of March 2009, the Minister of Finance report foreign debt burden was at 8 trillion. I think I need to update this one and find out what is now the foreign debt burden. But you can also surf and search, and you may find how much the burden we have, because the 8 trillion may be owned by only Uganda now, and when you go to the entire Africa, it has gone very, very, very far. And we have the obligation to pay. Do the rich have an obligation to help the poor? If people are poor and they are not even able to pay the small interest, while the premium is still demanding, and the rich nations are still demanding. In the year 1998, there was a move among the Western countries to get rid of the debt owned by African countries, debt relief. And indeed, they went as far as getting rid of it, but not all of it. Up to now, the African countries are burdened and fully loaded with the burden of paying these debts. So what does Christian ethics say about helping the poor? If you read the book of Deuteronomy chapter, I think 13, you can get a picture of what God was telling the Israelites, or the Hebrews, how to cater for the poor among them. Now, we Christians are a new Israel. We can adopt to these new ideologies adopted from the teaching of the Bible. Should we just keep silent while poor are burdened with these debts? The West and most of it, the West Europe and America, most of them are Christians. Should they keep other Christian countries under the burden of paying the debts? What does Christian ethics say about helping the poor? Yes, they have an obligation to help, but not impose their help, because that's where now they are giving aid. They are giving aid as a means of saying that they are helping, but they are imposing the aid because aid does not come free. It goes with other attachments, as you'll see sometimes. So when you help, you don't go around showing off that you have helped. What of those who take advantage of the help? They help and follow the help. We know where they have given aid and they have followed the aid, and the aid is in turn paying them as salaries. And you find that the aid has not achieved the purpose for which it has been given or offered. What about when we talk about simplicity and prosperity gospels? Was Jesus a billionaire who lived in luxury? Jesus was born in a manger, and he said that he had nowhere to put his head, meaning that the one we follow, much as he is the creator of the whole world, he decided to live as a poor person, whereby we may interpret it that being rich is not a prerequisite for living a comfortable life. There are so many people who are rich, but they are poor in spirit. They are rich, their nations are fighting wars. So many things are happening. So what kind of prosperity does the Bible teach? It has to be the type of prosperity that does not destroy your soul or hinder the gospel. Such a prosperity, like David was praying that, Lord, Don't give me a lot of wealth. Let me not be too rich that I forget you, and not be very poor and I make your name despised. So that's why we say, if you become prosperous, let it not destroy your soul and hinder the gospel. Instead, use your prosperity to preach the gospel by caring for the needs of the poor and advancing the kingdom of God here on earth. So should a Christian live a simple or sumptuous life? In other words, you have things but you want to live like a simple person or a sumptuous life. You should live within your means. Don't assume, don't suppose that this is what I should be when you, but he is saying, live within your means. Don't overstretch by looking for wealth or undermining the value of wealth, but live within your means. Wealth and care for environment. Care for the earth and all its living creatures was the first task given to Adam and Eve long before sin entered the nature of man. True Christians care for the environment because this was stewardship, something entrusted into the hands of humanity. So, if you want to be a true Christian, you must offer care, the environment given to you. If your wealth is destroying the environment, then it is not promoting the well-being of the community and yourself. Therefore, you are a worthless steward. And we know today, the wealthy people are the ones who have contributed a higher percentage of environmental degradation. You need to pray very hard that you don't become one of them. They have cut down forest cover in order to make farms. They have, made some of the swamps disappear. Others are reclaiming lakes and so on. And this is responsible for climate change. And when the climate changes, it does not affect the person who has degraded the environment, it will affect all of us. Today, I wish I would have posted this one for you to see. There is a very big climatic change in Zambia, where the great Zambezi River has completely dried up. I would invite you to go on the internet and look what is happening. It has completely dried up. You see sand and stones. The river is no longer there. Yes, they are talking about climatic change, which might be caused by a number of factors, but one of them is environmental. So what do we do? Because now we may be looking at what is happening elsewhere. What about us here? There are some water bodies that have dried, but when it comes to rains, the rains have nothing to check them. They have destroyed crops, houses, livestock, and many other things because of lack of environmental ethics. So, true Christians must care for the environment. It is a moral aspect that we must observe. Christian ministry and money. The Bible states clearly that your money is a gift from God. And which is true, because in whatever we know, when God was creating, He didn't create money, but He created avenues through which we can make money. And He has given us a wide range of making money. You see, when we are talking about money, we are talking about money in terms of liquid cash. But sometimes money can be looked at from the things we have. We can quantify them. How much are they equivalent to? You have cows, you have farmland, you have plantations of trees and whatever. How much if you were to translate them into money? So, you can use liquid cash or the equivalent, but all these have come from God and have been given to us for our own benefits. But we cannot forget the one who has given them to us. And when we give them back to God, God is not going to use them for His own as an individual, but He will pass them on to those who do not have. As the scripture says, we have been given freely, so we give out also freely. Whether you have a lot of money or very little money, whatever money you have is a gift from God. The amount of money you have is not a reflection of righteousness. So we cannot say that people who are well off are righteous. No. What we can say is that they have just been given as a gift. Everybody is given a gift, not because they are righteous before God. Jesus never sinned and yet was very poor. Not even having a regular place to sleep at night. Luke chapter 9 verse 58. How would you translate that one in your own context? If such a righteous person, Son of God, owned nothing and yet He is the creator of everything. So he says, the scripture helps us to understand the relationship between our faith and our wealth. He says, seek first the kingdom. In other words, the kingdom is very, very much important, and God will provide what you need, because everything we need is found in the kingdom. So we first seek the kingdom and we find the rest inside there. Secondly, he says, be generous with what you have. Don't look at how much, but be generous. There are people around us who wish to be like us, much as we think that we are not worth. Be generous. Thirdly, says that the love of money leads to destruction. I think it was Paul or Peter who says the love of money is the source of evil. If you look at people who love money, their mind is always on having money. By crook or hook, they must get money. And they will use money to do anything they want. If they want to get rid of you, they will get rid of you. That's why you find that they are grabbing land that belongs to others. When they are constructing these multi-billion buildings in cities, that they want sacrifices, they go and sacrifice children. So the love of money leads to destruction, and it is unethical. It is immoral. Unless you make money secondary to what you love, and which we find in the kingdom. Number 4, he says, be content with what you have. How many of us are contented with what you have? I remember the story of this young man who was joining Makerere some 4 years ago. He was going to study, I think, IT. He entered the campus with a metallic box and they laughed at him. Many people. But for him, he was contented with what he had. And my friend, at the end of his, he was given many things. At the end of his course, he married the best, and he was given employment there and then. He was contented. He did not move about to look for how he can look like others. Number 5 says, laziness leads to poverty. Whereas those people who have money, who have wealth, have worked hard, tirelessly to become rich. They are those who have turned out to be lazy, and therefore they are poor. You find them by the roadside begging. Sometimes you look at them, everything, they are complete, but they are beggars because they are lazy. Mackay, an English missionary, was surprised after they had brought Christianity in Uganda that some believers were lazy and they were not working. He asked himself, how can a Christian be lazy? How? If we are following Jesus Christ's teaching, how can a Christian be lazy? Christians are supposed to turn the world a better place to live in. But you cannot turn the world a better place to live in if you have decided to become lazy. A Christian should not be a beggar. And in fact, tomorrow when you are moving about and you find somebody putting his hands or her hands outside begging, you first ask, what is your name? If he's a Christian, you need to pray for that one to change his mind or her mind. Number 6, plan for what you spend. I think that's what it should be. Plan before you spend. Yes. When we are going to spend what we have, whether little or much, plan. What do I need to buy today? There are sometimes when we have money and we go into things that are unplanned. Even if you have friends, if they want you to bless them with what you have earned, let them tell you ahead of time so that you can include them in your plan. There are some people who are particular and specific. They say, I will not spend more than 20,000 a day. Anything that comes on top of 20,000, he says that was not planned for. So if they have put 20,000 for a day, they say this is ethical. What is it that I want to buy within 20,000? You will put them down. Even when you come to them, they may tell you, no, I have no money. Because it was not planned. So plan before you spend. It is very important that spending should go with planning. Then save little by little. Save little by little. Saving is not an African culture, but we can learn. Because what we save may be our salvation tomorrow. 8. Do not squander your money. Remember, there is this young man whom we study, I think that is Luke chapter 15, verse 11 to 32, the prodigal son. He squandered and became useless and could not be recognized. Even when he came, only the father was able to know. There are times when we use all that we have, and it is not good for a Christian. So we need to know how we can stop wasting money. Squandering is like being extravagant. Number 9, be aware of debts and loans. Debts and loans are very, very bad. If you have to take any debt or any loan, it should be necessary and within what you are able to pay. because we know that there are some people who have taken debts and loans and they have failed to pay them, and as a result they have ended up losing their physical possessions, and others they have ended up into prison. So do not be a guarantor also. What does that mean? Somebody takes a loan and comes and requests you to be a guarantor so that in case he fails, you are able to pay. But Proverbs helps us to understand, do not be a guarantor. Otherwise, the one you have stood for, when he fails to pay, you will be responsible to pay every penny. So yes, don't be a guarantor. How money has become a menace today. It has brought sexual immorality, e.g. prostitutes and fornication. They pay money and they go into prostitution. Prostitution, in fact, has become a legalized kind of business in some countries. Even those who have not officially legalized them, they have kept silent. And they say when you become silent, it means you are saying it's okay. They are looking for money. Divisions. The rich, who we call the haves, and the poor have nots. They are divided. It breeds evil practices, e.g. child sacrifice. Some people are looking for money. It is also causing marriage instabilities and breakups. When you look into this one, there are people who have concentrated on looking for money than looking after their families. They spend much of the time chasing the coin. They don't know what is happening in their families. Some of them are involved in prostitution and fornication. As a result, families have broken down. Another one is abuse of professional ethics, e.g. doctors who assist, that is an example, who assist pregnant women or girls to abort. They are looking for money. It's good money that goes for every abortion. But also we have the legal professionals who will always assist wrongdoers to win cases so that they can get money. In pretense, it also has influenced traders to cheat customers, adjusting weighing scales or using wrong stones. Also undertaking risk ventures like smuggling. And all of these we are talking about, you will find that Christians are involved in them. Neglect of God due to preoccupation. We have no time for God. We don't go for church service. We don't go for prayers. We don't even thank God for what He has done for us. You know. There is also another issue of erosion of culture, e.g. men and women who are paid by print media for offering nude pictures, money, telling lies in courts of law or even in medical circles. You want just money, then you'll offer maybe a DNA, false information. Offering of poor quality goods to maximize profits. I've already talked about that one. When we are in a competitive market, you want to to show that your products are much better than the others. So you may paint a picture that your products are good when they are not. And in so doing, you end up giving poor quality goods at a very higher price so that you can get profits. Abuse of political power, constitution to remove term limits, for example, in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, and elsewhere. Why do you think that there are these removal and reinstatement of term limits? Abuse of power. Then the antisocial behaviors, e.g., sabotage in business and even in politics. Sabotage the personality of an individual, you sabotage the business of another. And as a result, it has increased corruption. The rural urban migration and its effects. Many people these days are migrating from the rural going to the urban. What are they going for? There has been a kind of thinking that urban life is much better than rural life. They are seeking for greener pastures, but when you get there and the greener pastures are not available, what do? Some people do not want to go back home. They will stay in the urban. And staying in the urban to maintain life needs you to be working, but you don't have work. Then eventually you turn into a social misfit. These are the thieves. These are the people who rob others and many other things. Then telling of lies, e.g. lovers, politicians, etc. There are those who tell lies to their lovers that they are not married, they have no children. There are so many things. Politicians are also telling lies to their supporters or to their electorates and so on. What about ghost workers? Creating ghost workers so that the payroll can increase in numbers, and then you get more money to your pocket. Legal assistance versus money. I've talked about that. You want to offer legal assistance to your clients, but you will be offering it depending on how the person looks like. Those who do not have money may not be able to get legal redress or assistance. What do you think? So how can a Christian accumulate wealth if wealth has got all those things surrounding it? One, through exploiting natural resources using hands. Can engage in timber, can engage in cultivation, you can engage in animal or crop farming. All those you can use the natural resources. Another one, through inheritance of property. Can be houses, cars, etc. or a farm. But also there is exploitation of one's talents. We have talents. You might be skilled. There are people who are talented, for example, interpreting a language into another. Like there are some people who are employed to interpret or translate a language into another in the publishing companies. Teaching is a talent. Preaching the gospel, even becoming a medical specialist or a legal specialist, is not for everybody. You can exploit that one, and it can bring you wealth without being corrupt. But also savings and investments are other means that you can use. Another one is being honest in paying tithe to obtain favor. Sometimes buying securities and treasury bills. Buying shares in companies on the stock market. You can also become wealthy through wages and salaries, but also some African countries through bride wealth. Borrowing from fellow Christians who may put very little interest or no interest, and you go and use the money to improve on your income. Fundraising, donations from people of goodwill, then loans from the bank, etc., provided they are clean. So, in conclusion, we say true wealth is not just accumulating material possession. It is having well-being in your spiritual, emotional, and physical nature, and being able to share with others.